This is the Montessori word study set. In this set you have a selection of posters, suffixes, prefixes, compound words, word families, root trees and a blank one, and then suffixes, prefixes and compound words to be cut up into an activity. So we're going to start off with the suffixes. This activity can be done with children right from the age of around 6 or so long as they can read a little. They don't have to be really good at reading to be able to do this activity, but they should be able to have a go, particularly at the words in the left column here. So the important thing with this activity is that wherever your child is working, this poster needs to be placed somewhere quite far away from them. So it could be up on a wall on the other side of the room, it could be placed on your bookshelf, in a place where they can't see it from where they're sitting, and that's because this activity helps to build up their memory. So they're going to be looking at the words on the poster and then going back to their seat to record the words in some way, and it helps with their spelling and with their reading and with their memory if this is far away. So they're not just looking up and copying down the letters that they see, they actually have to walk away from the word and be able to remember it when they get back. So the first way to do this activity is to use 2 sets of letters. If you don't have these alphabet boxes, then you can go straight to the next part of the activity where the child is going to write them down. But I'll show you how it goes with the alphabet boxes too. So you invite the child to come over and have a look at the poster with you, and you can choose one of them to look at. So if we look at act, activist and activity, you can ask them if they notice anything that's similar in those words, and they should point out that they all start with the word act. And then you ask them to go and make this word with their alphabet boxes, and you tell them that act, the part which is the same in all of them, is going to be done in blue or in black. We've got blue to use today, and then on the second and third word, the part that comes after act is going to be done in another colour. We've got red today. So the children look at the first word, they go back to their workplace and they write the word act with the letters. They then go back over to the poster and have a look at the next word. They can see that act is the same, and they know they're going to write that in blue, and then they've got ivist on the end, and they try to remember that. If it takes 2 or 3 trips back to the poster, that's fine. However many trips it takes for them to be able to get that word down. And then again, they go back over to the poster, look at the third one, they see that act is the same, and that they then need to add ivity onto the end. When they've completed all 3 words, you can ask them to read them, act, activist, activity, and then you can tell them that this part of the word, which is always the same, so act, 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 is called the root of the word, and the part which is added onto the end of the root, ivist and ivity, are called suffixes. So they learn root and suffix, and then they can carry on and do the rest of the sheet or a few more, depending on the child's ability to read and to make these words. They might just do 1 or 2, or they might just go ahead and finish the whole sheet. The next time that they do this activity, they're going to write the words in their notebooks rather than using the alphabet boxes to complete them. So if you don't have these alphabet boxes, you can just go straight to this step. So as before, the poster is going to be somewhere where they can't see it, so they're going to be getting up from their seat, having a look and coming back, and you explain the activity just as before, but instead of using the letters they're going to write it down. You ask them to write down the root part of the word in pencil, and then to choose any colour they want to add the suffix part on. And then you can ask them if they can name root and suffix as before, and they can go ahead and do the whole sheet, or they can just do a few each time, depending on how long it takes them to get through them. The third activity with this card is a nice one to do with a partner, so they can get together with a friend. One child will hold the card and read one of the words to their friend, so they might read out children. Their partner has to write down on their paper the word children, and they have to be careful to make sure that they write the root in pencil and the suffix in a colour, and then they can use the card to check if they've got the right spelling, and they can take turns in doing that. You then move on to prefixes, and this is done in a very similar way. The card is over on the wall somewhere where the child can't see it from their seat. You go over and have a look at the words and ask the child to point out something that they see which is the same in all the three words. So we've got do, and do, and they should be able to tell you that this is the root. And then you can ask them whether they notice anything different about the extra part which is added on. So on this sheet it's not after the root but before the root, and if it comes before the root it's called a prefix. And they can work with the alphabet boxes again to begin with. So again, the root is written in blue or black, and then when they do the prefix, that's done in a different colour. So it doesn't matter what the different colour is, but it is important to keep the root always the same so that the child can recognise that the root is always in that colour. So they work through all of those, and then the next time they come to it, they would be writing them in their exercise books. Again, using pencil for the root and then a colour for the prefix. And you can check, once they've done a few of these, you can check that they still understand the difference between suffix and prefix. Then they can do the same activity with a friend, where they read one of these words out to them and their friend has to write it down using, again, pencil for root and a colour for the prefix. So that's a dictation activity with a friend. When they've done that, they can then do another dictation activity, but this time using both cards. So if a child reads a word from the prefix card, like misfit, the other child writes it down and they have to know that the root is fit and miss will be in a different colour. Whereas if a child reads a word from this one, like tester, then test will be in pencil and will be in another colour. So that one is checking to see if they can identify which part of the word is the root and then which part is the suffix or prefix. You then have 2 prefix and 2 suffixes activities which you need to cut up so they look like this. So the child first of all needs to sort them out into 2 columns, and they can do this by seeing how the word is written on the card. So all of this column, the words are written nearest to the right hand side, and all of this column, they're written nearest to the left hand side, and you're going to join them together to make a word. So you've got your labels, prefix and root at the top, and the child has to find a suitable root to go with the prefix. So if we take the first one, which is take, they can move it all the way down, so distake, transtake, retake, mistake, semitake, pretake, microtake and intake. There may sometimes seem like there's more than one possibility, but they go for the one they think it is. And if they've done it, if they've made a mistake with it, then they'll be able to see later on when they do the rest of them that they don't quite fit, and then they can swap them around. So there are 2 for each one. The first activity, so the prefixes 1, uses relatively simple vocabulary, and then when you get onto prefixes 2, they are less likely to be familiar with this kind of vocabulary. So you might do prefixes 1 after you've introduced prefixes and done the work with the posters, and then once you've been through the whole of the word unit, then you might come back later, this might be a year or 2 later, where you're working with more difficult vocabulary. So there's this similar activity with a suffixes 1 and a suffixes 2. You can then move on to compound words. So these words are made up of 2 root words, and there's a whole different selection on there. These ones don't go in rows, they're not connected to one another in any way. And again, you would set this card up somewhere in the room where the child can't see it, and they need to walk over to it to have a look at the words and then come back to their workspace to record that in some way. First time they do it, they can do it with the letters if you have them. This time there's not a difference between a root and a suffix, or a prefix and a root, so it doesn't matter what colours you use. These are both roots. They're all made up of 2 root words, so you just need to explain to the child that it's just 2 root words that are joined together. So once they've worked through all of this, they can then, again, the next time they come to it, they can write them out using 2 different colours. Maybe avoid using pencil this time, so that they can kind of see that these are of equal. These are both root words, so they're equal. There's not one that's different. And then you could do the dictation activity with a friend as well on that one. And then you have the compound words, which you can cut up and make the smaller activities, the matching activities with. And again, the compound words 1 are very simple words that the children will probably be very familiar with, so it's just getting used to the idea of what compound words are. And then the second compound words activity are words that they might not be familiar with, so you'd probably do this one much later on. And children can be encouraged to spot and write down root words when they're reading or when they're doing different activities. It's nice for them to start to recognise root words. Sorry, compound words and root words. You then move on to word families. Again, ask the child to have a look at the card, which is placed further away from their work area. Ask them to read the words conformity, format, inform, uninformed. Uniformed. And ask them to spot the root words. So in here it's form, which is in all of them. And then they should be able to tell you, if they've worked through the suffixes and prefixes work, that we have con as a prefix and ity as a suffix. And then in this one we have no prefix, but we do have a suffix of at. This one has a prefix in but no suffix, and this one has both a prefix and a suffix. And they would work with them in the same way, so using the letters first if you have them, and making sure that their root is in black or blue, and then the prefix and suffix in a different colour. When they've worked through it with the letter boxes, then they do the same thing, but again doing it in their writing books, using a pencil for the root word and a different colour, any different colour for the prefixes and suffixes. And then they can go on to work with a friend, as they did with the other cards, where they read a word out for each other and they have to see if they can spell the word correctly and using the correct colours for each part of the word. And finally we have this word tree, which has a root word. On this one it's spect, which means to see or observe or look, and we can see all the different words that have this root in it. So the children can go around reading each one of these words. They can talk about whether the word has a prefix or a suffix attached to it. They can say whether the root word has been changed in some way slightly. They can talk about the meanings of the words that they understand and how this links to what the root word means. And then for the words that they don't know, they can have a look in a dictionary and write down the meanings for them and try to write them in a sentence. Once they've worked with this card, with a spect root, and they've understood that, they can then go on to make their own word trees. You can either photocopy this so that they can write on it, or you can just ask them to do a sketch of a tree in their book. They can choose a root word and put it there on the roots of the tree and write down its meaning, and then brainstorm to see as many different words they can find that has that root in, and then they can use a dictionary or check online to see whether there's any extra ones that they've missed. And again, if there's any that they didn't know, they can look them up in a dictionary and write some sentences with the new words that they've learnt. And it's quite interesting for them as well to have a look to see where those root words actually come from, which different languages they've come from. This activity here is right towards the end of the 6 to 12 age range. This is quite a difficult one. So with this set, you've gone from the beginning with the younger children, or the ones that have just started, maybe the 6-year-olds, right through to the end of the upper elementary children.